Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael, of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, brothers and sisters, is brought to you from Danite Publications. We hope and pray, brothers and sisters, that everybody is well and will be better. Brothers and sisters, we ask you all to participate by getting your pens, your pads, your paper, and to take notes. Taking screenshots is welcome in this kind of presentation. This, brothers and sisters, is a part 5 of a series that is dedicated to help bring in this kind of information to the masses of the people. So, brothers and sisters, without any further ado, we are going to go live in this particular case. If I can be heard and people are in good spirits, we ask you to type in the number 4. If I can be heard and people are in good spirits, we ask you to type in the number 4. Shalom, my lady Sarai. Shalom, brother Dorayahu Ben Dora. Shalom, my brother Yirmiyahu. We here at Danite Publications do not claim to know everything, and we are open to constructive criticism. Now, before we get into the actual, say, presentation, we are going to, brothers and sisters, explain what this meme is here. All right. You see the houses there based upon, say, in Virginia and so forth. The Caucasian guy you see there is an image of President James Monroe. And the picture that became a famous picture is that of LeVar Burton that was shown as Kunta Kinte as a slave and a captive in Virginia. Honoring of 12 Presidents in Ownership, Part 5, starring James Monroe and the state of Virginia. Tune in Sunday, November 26, 2023 at 9:30 p.m. We are doing it a little earlier than that for time purposes, brothers and sisters. Nonetheless, we hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. And we ask you to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Contact 908-587-4841. The email, yyisrael22@yahoo.com. So, brothers and sisters, let us pull up, if we will, the PowerPoint. By first, we're going to start by taking off the, matter of the brand, if we will, in this particular case, right? And after that, we're going to, brothers and sisters, take off the matter of this particular aspect, if we will, for brothers and sisters. And we're going to, all right, do the matter of the share screen. And as that happens, we want to pull up the PowerPoint, share the screen in such, and make the move from that particular case. I am open to the brothers and sisters who have constructive criticism and who can actually help me make, by ideas and wisdom, the presentations better, and so forth and so on. All right. I am definitely, brothers and sisters, open up to that for reference purposes. Okay, so let us get into that. And as the screen there is shared, we are now going to pull up the PowerPoint, and we're going to start at the slideshow and from the beginning. We are going to start off in prayer and move on from that particular case. We are going to pray first in Hebrew and then in English. Thank you, family. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Modim Rabim Lefaneka Ya Elohenu. Elohe Abotenu. Elohe Abraham, Elohe Yitzchak, Elohe Yisrael. Ha'el HaGibor, Ha'el HaNorah. Gomer Wahagorim. Atahu Wa'in Etzlaka B'Shemaim O Ba'aretz. Shemana Tefelotenu Wata'ane Otan. Tiyena Imanu Ki Anatnu Zorakim Od Kali Yot Bakayenu. Al Nata Azbenu. Al Nata Kwalel Lanu. Al Nati Tain Lanu Iwer Wagam King Keresh. Yehovah Eloheinu Elohe Abotenu. Kwak Otanu Bayadka Bakamuleka Wagam King Baraka Meka. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Amen.
Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. What I said basically in a prayer was, Yah, will you hear us and answer us? Will you take us? Will you not curse us? Will you bless us? Will you forgive us? Will you hear us? There is none like you in the heaven above or in the earth beneath. So to you do we ask of these things. And that in the basic matter was the prayer in that case. So let us, brothers and sisters, with the time allotted, because we don't want to make the presentations but so long for reference purposes, for edification and clarity purposes. All right. So again, brothers and sisters, if I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. Thank you for that. Giving honor to the Most High. This presentation is brought to you from Danite Publications. We hope you all are well and will be better. We ask you all to comment, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. In the description is a list of books one can buy for edification purposes. To the brothers and sisters who have been buying the books, it is definitely seen and appreciated. To the people who have subscribed to the channel, thank you for that. To the people who have sat there and shared the videos, thank you for that. It is definitely appreciated. I want to say this. When a video is already uploaded, I notice sometimes some people click 4 on it because I usually ask if you can be heard and if I in good spirits, please type in the number 4. I give people the respect that I would like, and that is I do subscribe to the channel of the people who, after the video is uploaded, they take the time out to sit there and leave a comment to it. So that way it's not just a thing of, can you subscribe to my channel, but I don't subscribe to yours. I take the time out if you leave a comment inside of the comment section when the video is uploaded, that I too subscribe to your channel as well. All right. So that's definitely something I care to point out for reference purposes. All righty, family. So let us, brothers and sisters, without, as the saying goes, without any further ado, get into this. Screenshot to welcome. This is essentially 22 slides, this being one of them. The history we're going to go over in this is known by some. So some of the information of this is known, some of this is not. But brothers and sisters, we ask you all to comment, like, share, if you will. All right. Now, without any further ado, we are on Moreh Yeshaya Torah lessons as well, brothers and sisters, as Moreh Yeshaya. No, sorry. We are on Moreh Yeshaya history lessons as well as the Facebook group or Facebook page, Yeshaya Author Danite. All right. So just want to point that out for reference purposes. Okay, let's continue in this manner. Thank you for that. All right, the meme has already in part been explained, but just want to show it here for reference purposes regarding what we're talking about, regarding what we're speaking upon, and so forth and so on. All right, now get your pens, your pads, your paper, and take notes. Thank you for that, brothers and sisters. Short biography of James Monroe. Was born in 1758 in Westmoreland County, Virginia. The place today is known as Monroe Hall, Virginia. He died in 1831. Now, what's significant in part about the year 1831? That is when, brothers and sisters, the situation happened, for those who do know, with Nat Turner, also in the state of Virginia. Let's continue. He too was the governor of Virginia from 1799 until 1802. What's significant in part about 1799? That's when George Washington died. We're going to talk about George Washington in this presentation as well. Now, why do we go over this? And so that way, this kind of information being brought to the people cannot and will not be forgotten. I do not, on this platform, ask generally for, quote, donations. I ask, if you look in the description, brothers and sisters, and you see the Amazon link that's there, that you may want to buy the book. Why? So that way you can not just give your money and donating, but rather actually see something for your hard-earned wages, for your hard-earned money. So these are things we care to bring out for reference purposes. All right, let's continue in this. The governor of Virginia from 1799 to 1802. And prior to that, he was in the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War happened in the 18th century. We too are going to talk about the Revolutionary War in this presentation. His wife's name was Elizabeth Monroe, born in 1768. She died in 1830. She died in Oak Hill, a plantation in Aldie, Virginia. So when you can look at this, brothers and sisters, and then see starring James Monroe in the state of Virginia, this is why, in part, that we say this for reference purposes. This is starring. You got James Monroe, who was the 5th president, all right, with some schools named after him in the United States, which we're going to talk about, because they honor their leaders, brothers and sisters. They honor their ancestors, brothers and sisters. They honor the people who set the pace for them, brothers and sisters. Hint, for those who know where we're going, in that particular case. All right, James Monroe in the state of Virginia. So let's continue in this particular case. There are schools named in honor of James Monroe, one in the Bronx, one in New Jersey. Two noteworthy things of James Monroe is that he was a slave master of over 70 persons, numbering 75, brothers and sisters, and he was the Secretary of State during the era of James Madison. Now, why do we want to point that out? In the book that a brother wrote, Egypt Talk and Writing, right? I pointed out, as we're going to point out in this presentation, that during the timing of Gabriel Prosser and the revolt that happened during that time in Virginia is when Madison was the president and James Monroe was the governor of Virginia. Gabriel Prosser taught the people that they were the people of the Israelites. Did you know that? For those who do know that history. That is cited with sources in a book that I wrote called Deuteronomy 28:15-68 for those who are interested. All right. So let us continue, brothers and sisters, in this particular case. Now, this is the plantation of James Monroe in Virginia. And this is how you will see that it looks today. Of course, they probably changed it up as time went on and so forth and so on. These things, brothers and sisters, is in part where our ancestors were made to sit there and work on. Their leaders were our oppressors. What has changed? Brothers and sisters, I'm going to, and it's not trying to be offensive to anyone whatsoever. We're going to read something, if we will, turning the light on real quick. From this book here, if we will, the Bible. And we're going to be reading in part in the book of Leviticus chapter 26, brothers and sisters, if we will. We are in the scriptures in Leviticus, the 26th chapter, and we're going to read in verse 17. All right? So let us, for those who are interested, have your scriptures, Leviticus chapter 26, verse 17. And here, brothers and sisters, is what it says. And I will set my face against you, and you shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and you shall flee when none pursues you. That's in Leviticus chapter 26, verse 17. So right there is where, in part, we read where it says, brothers and sisters, right? I'm going to turn the camera off as is the custom on my platform, where it distinctly says, they that hate you shall reign over you. So when we do this, and I say it in colloquial or slang terms, or sarcastically, when I say honoring presidents, I'm not saying that we're actually honoring them as they are great and good and so forth. You understand? But rather acknowledging and how they were honored and ownership, and they being the leaders of the country where our people and ancestry were oppressed. Now, brothers and sisters, on this channel and platform, this is not, brothers and sisters, to stir up strife, hatred, animosity, or anger. Also, at the same token, it is not, brothers and sisters, to be, quote, extra careful as, quote, black people. Well, it ain't all, them. No, we don't talk it ain't all them on this platform, because in the memes and the presentations that have now been going on for a matter of months, nobody said it was all a certain people, brothers and sisters. So we don't need to be, quote, extra careful by saying, I'm not saying it's all, such and such. No. That's not necessary to have to say that in that particular case. All right. So the brother Doraya who typed in, I've asked myself the question, did our ancestors preach to the slaves if the time of this from the Bible? What? Let me see something. Sorry. If our ancestors preached to the slaves, if the time from the slave edited Bible around their slave masters, and from the Bible unedited and private. I'm trying to understand the question, brother. If you can word it a little different, to understand what you're saying in that particular case. When you read about Nat Turner, Denmark, Vesey, and Gabriel Prosser, they wasn't reading the edited Bible that was made safe for the slave in that particular case, because we're talking about people that's doing a revolt. The slave Bible that was given out and pushed to people was the Bible that didn't have Moses as the leader on a human level, but just Joseph going into captivity. So that's not the Bible that they was going around in that particular case. So if I'm understanding what your question is, please type it in for me so that way I can understand it. I appreciate that question and comment, my brother. Now we get back into this right here, the plantation of James Monroe in Virginia. Remember, he's the 5th president, and he was we want to point out, of the Revolutionary War. He was born in 1758. Washington died in 1799. The Continental Congress was in existence until the 1770s. So they were all in cahoots and friends and associated with each other. He was born in what we will call colonial America. Let's continue in this particular case. Part of the listing of the slaves of James Monroe. Brothers and sisters, how can anyone deny that our people were enslaved? Now, it might be blurry, but that's one of the best copies that's there. And to this date, correct me if I'm wrong, nobody's contested it to sit there and state that, oh, no, this is not accurate as far as these people being enslavers. One of the fancy statements, and I say that no disrespect intended, is, well, that was what the people were doing at the time. So, it was just, something that happened. You know who comes with that kind of statement? Well, that's just something that happened. The mafia guy, Samuel the Bull, when he talks about shooting a 16-year-old. It's just something that happened. That is the arrogance and the belligerence and the nonchalant spirit of, well, it is what it is kind of thing. That right there is not something, brothers and sisters, that we need to sit there and accept. You understand? Let us stop accepting the short barrel of a matter. Let's continue, brothers and sisters, in this particular case. Note, James Monroe was the governor of Virginia during the matter of Gabriel Prosser, as pointed out. In such matter, some of the revolters were executed. Some of their names were Will, John, Isaac, Michael, Ned, Solomon, Billy, Martin, Charles, and Frank, to name some. James Monroe's captors included carpenters, blacksmiths, maids, cooks, field workers. Some of the women who were enslaved by Monroe were Suki, Eve, and Betsy. They were nurses. Daniel, Tom, Peter, and Hartford were tellers regarding Monroe. So what do we want to point out? That James Monroe, in his collection of slaves, if you will, numbering over 70, some of them were blacksmiths, some of them were maids, some of them were cooks, some of them were field workers. When studying upon this, they was talking about, well, you had it to where Thomas Jefferson, who died some years before James Monroe died, was one of the few presidents that was actually having intimate relationships with his slaves. Brothers and sisters, black women were raped in slavery by white men and black men. Did you know that? See, one of the reasons why we want to point these kind of things out is because the minimalizing of a matter, the trying to sugarcoat the particular matter when that sugar is not needed. Your body in health lets you know when sugar is needed. So when you trying to say in history, sugarcoat something and just gloss over it like, well, this is something that, no, we want to sit there and dig this out, brothers and sisters, for reference purposes. All right? So when we see people who were their nurses, what are we talking about? When you see people, brothers and sisters, all right, getting into this particular matter and subject, they were the cooks, the maids. What were the maids doing but cleaning? What were the cooks doing? Obviously, cooking. Field workers, blacksmiths, carpenters. So when we can look, brothers and sisters, at the matter of, say, the plantation, and we're going to show the other house where Monroe was in Washington, D.C., outside of the one in Virginia. Who built that? Who nurtured those particular buildings and so forth? These are things, again, brothers and sisters, we care to, again, point out for reference purposes. One of the things that I've taught upon was that the nations, knowing that we were the salt of the earth and the original people of the earth, had to go to the original people of the earth in order for the earth to work. This is not to get sidetracked, but brothers and sisters, once it comes down to a matter, say with Cain, the world biblical first murderer, it said the earth will not yield forth her strength to you. So is that perhaps why in spirit it became physical, that they had to go and get the original people of the earth in order to sit there and have the earth yield forth any kind of produce, because they could not work the land like the children of Israel were able to do? You understand? Let's continue in this particular manner. Thank you for the time, brothers and sisters. James Madison, pardon me, from James Monroe to James Madison. Remember, one being a governor at the time and one was the president. All right? So this is something we care, again, to bring out. Where to arrest the hand of the executioner is a question of great importance. It is hardly to be presumed a rebel who avows it was his intention to assassinate his master, if pardon, will ever become a useful servant. And we have no power to transport him aboard, nor is it less difficult to say whether mercy or severity is the better policy. In this case, though where there is cause for doubt, it is best to incline of the former counsel. James Monroe, regarding the matter of what happened with the uprising in his day and time of the people who were enslaved, should they be put to death or should they be sold off if they had the power to do so? That just go to show you that when they try to minimize what happened with us as a people, well, once it comes down to certain things, it was only 5% of the people who had slaves in the South. Brothers and sisters, that's not accurate. And we pointed that out, brothers and sisters, on this platform, Maury Yeshaya History Lessons. All right? That it had to been more than 5% of the people in the South who had slaves. And we're going to show that for reference purposes on why we say so in business. Let's continue, family. James Monroe residence while president in Northwest Washington, D.C. That's where he was in that case. You understand? That's in Washington, D.C., if we will, brothers and sisters. And yes, we do ask you all to subscribe to the channel. And yes, comment, like, and share. All right? The brother typed in, I was asking, when many of us who were preaching or allowed to preach to their fellow slaves of the time, were they preaching, I understand, from the slave Bible of the time to appease their masters in public? 9 times out of 10, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, that no. And say most cases, in that particular manner and so forth and so on. Because in order to be a preacher in the eyes of the slave master, you could not have the ability to know how to read. See, we have to remember something, that reading for us was a crime to these nations. They would flog white people for teaching black people how to read. Frederick Douglass, slave master, was upset with his wife for teaching Frederick Douglass how to read. So it wouldn't be, quote, this quote slave Bible that was being read out of, because the people who were preaching in front of the slave master or the overseer in slavery, they who were black were not even allowed to know how to read. So hopefully that answer is satisfactory. All right. So let's continue in this particular manner. Thank you for that. An act to protect the commerce of the United States and punish the crime of piracy, 1820. If any person or persons whatsoever shall on the high seas commit the crime of piracy as defined by the law of nations, and such offender or offenders shall afterwards be brought into or found in the United States, every such offender shall, upon conviction thereof, be punished to death. That was a law in the 1800s. If we remember, it was a thing, brothers and sisters, of after 1808, the Atlantic slave trade with the slave ship matter was deemed as piracy or deemed illegal. So anytime someone was doing it afterward, as in the case with the Amistad, you understand, that was considered a matter of piracy. So now, brothers and sisters, let's point out some things, if we will, with the time allotted. If the slave trade was a myth, if the Atlantic slave trade going from West and East Africa to the Western Hemisphere was a myth, why would they have a situation of an act being passed in this particular case? Why would Thomas Jefferson, before that, try to sit there and make it a law while being a slave master, to sit there and have the slave ship matter to be put into a criminal matter? Why afterward do we see the situation with James Monroe? These are questions that have to be asked to the people saying, we were here already. I recently talked to a person, not to name names, talking about, oh, I heard from someone that we are the Indians and we were never in Africa. Let's stop right there for a second. Africa has the things that many people drink every morning. Coffee. Africa has the things that people drive in. Metal, steel, oil, rubber. Africa has the things that people wear. Gold, silver, platinum. Africa has many of the minerals and the turquoise mines found in North Africa and what is referred to as the Sinai Peninsula, brothers and sisters, just goes to show that particular matter. The brother typed in, that's why they burned the Clotilda. Thank you for that comment, my brother. In the book that I wrote, Deuteronomy 28:15-68, I mentioned, brothers and sisters, the matter of the Clotilda slave ship. You understand? That is one of the last slave ships that came from Africa to what is referred to as the United States. And in that, brothers and sisters, did you know that it went up into what is referred to today as modern day Alabama, where in modern day Alabama, there is a sign that talks about that. The slave ship that came from Africa in 1859 or 1860. Brothers and sisters. So to the brothers and sisters, no disrespect intended, that speak upon saying, the matter of that is not accurate. We want to sit there and show for reference purposes using in Danite publications, giving honor and praise to the Most High. This book I've been pushing and promoting for $10 for those who are interested online. This is called From Averis to Alabama. You can get this online. And to complement, to land back, because we don't piggyback in the house of Israel, what the brother stated. The Clotilda slave ship monument is shown in this book right here. For those who are interested, turning the camera on for that particular matter in that particular case. All righty. Here we see, brothers and sisters, two people shown from the Clotilda ship. Now, of course, they coming out of West Africa, went through a whole lot in that ship. And you still see our ancestors dressed even in clean clothes. And notice the woman is wearing a skirt and the man in pants. Our ancestors, like Harriet Tubman, was not a woman walking around in pants. And you best believe Harriet Tubman did carry her pistol. So let's look at, brothers and sisters, this case here. And what is referred to as Africa Town in modern day Alabama of today is where you see this particular thing, if you will. This is spoken about in this book here, as well as the book Deuteronomy 28, called From Averis to Alabama, for those who are interested. So, giving honor and praise unto Yah, the creator, the maker of heaven and earth. How can anybody, brothers and sisters, attempt to deny those kind of facts? We're showing it from the lack of a better term, the white man's law. We're showing it in artifacts. We're showing it in documentaries. We're showing it in references. How then can anybody say, we were here already, and we were Indians, and we never came from Africa? Let's point this out, if you will, brothers and sisters. The whole world stemmed on this plateau from what you call modern day Africa. If you don't even believe in the quote scriptures and say that Adam and Eve is an allegory, as some say, the first bones that they found that they call Lucy, it's found in what they refer to as Africa. So there is nothing coming from the modern day Western Hemisphere that is somebody up there saying we were autonomous to this place. What it is you just simply may not want to get a passport. What it is simply, you don't want to sit there and travel. What it is simply, you just don't like Africa, or you okay with being marginalized and saying we were just here. That does not make any kind of sense, because everything that's great in this earth and then that is needed comes from that particular place. You understand? So when we read, as the brother pointed out, there's even Israelites teaching that as well. Brother and brothers and sisters, And this is not to play prophet. Do you know in our records in the Torah that there is a thing that the Most High, in the English, it talks about that soul shall be cut off from among their people. So if you're an Israelite, knowing yourself as that, and you up there saying that we didn't come from the east, we were already here, could that be a sign that you are cut off from among your people? Because our people come from the east. As the people shown in the thing that we call Africa Town, even in modern day Alabama, talks about. Please, we need an answer for that one, family. Let's continue in this. You can look this matter up of the crime of piracy in 1820 in your own time as well. Jean Lafitte, correct me if I'm wrong in the pronunciation of the name. This gentleman was the owner of the slave ship Le Brave or Le Brave. The captain of the ship, Jean Desfarges, D-E-S, F-A-R-G-E-S, my French is not the best way in pronunciation, sorry about that, was executed due to the matter of shipping captives in the 19th century. The British used to sit there after 1808, look inside the Atlantic Ocean and within the Caribbean Sea and to see if people were still doing the slave trading via the ships or by the ships. And some of them were executed. Some of them were incarcerated. As in the case with the Amistad, those people were incarcerated for doing that and what they refer to as piracy. So these are things, again, that we're pointing out for reference purposes. Asking you all to comment, like, share, and subscribe. You can look this information up in your own time as well. This is like a guideline, if you will, for people who care for this kind of information. All right. My lady typed in that philosophy of those claiming that they were here already here, in the Americas, and claiming more heritage is absurd, considering the appellation Moorish derives from the name of the ancient North African Amzai Berber Kingdom of Mauritania. This is truth, which existed from around the 3rd century BC until 44 AD. Historians have attested to it as the first unified and independent kingdom of the modern region of Morocco. Now, brothers and sisters, did you know that when Isabel and Ferdinand kicked the Moors out of Spain in the 15th century, as it gets into, brothers and sisters, the 16th century, the Moors that was in Mauritania were teamed up with the Portuguese and Spaniards to get rid of the other kingdoms that were in Africa and to push the Atlantic slave trade. Many of the black people that were, quote, selling other black people were part of those Moors that descended from those that were kicked out of Spain, brothers and sisters, by the matter of Isabel and Ferdinand. Now, Isabel and Ferdinand is the grandparents of Charles II. Pardon me, I stand corrected. Charles V. Charles V came what is referred to as the Asiento, where it was, though wicked, a, quote, legal document for our people to be brought to modern day Haiti, modern day Dominican Republic, modern day Jamaica, and modern day Puerto Rico. The worker by the name of John Hawkins, referred to as one of the first enslavers by our brothers who are the 5%ers, which is very true, was using the Asiento as a legal document. So what am I pointing out? You had the Moors that was kicked out in 1492. Then by 1591, let's get into this history, they were up there with other Europeans selling black people into the slave trade. Then after that particular said matter, you had the Asiento that was created by Charles V. later on, you had John Hawkins using that same asiento as a legal, though wicked document to have black people brought into the place known as Venezuela today, working for Queen Elizabeth I, who was the owner of what they call the good ship Jesus. So when we get into this kind of subject, brothers and sisters, there's no room to sit there and say, well, it ain't all of them. Nobody said it was all of them. So we have to be careful in that particular case. These are things, brothers and sisters, we want to point out in this particular matter. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. So my lady typed in, how can you be of this land and claiming Moroccan heritage, which is in Africa? Maybe, perhaps, and I would like to give an answer. You can care less. You know how many of us deal with jobs or careers? We do it to pay bills. We do it to pay mortgage. We do it to pay phone bills. We do it to pay rent. We do it to pay storage. We do it to pay whatever we pay, right? Some of us do it to pay people back. You understand? No pun intended. Like many of us who are grown and working, you can care less. As long as it's legal, where that job money come from. If you a porter, you as zappy as if you dropping off the mail. So it doesn't matter what building or facility you're working in, as long as your responsibilities responsibly and respectfully are being taken care of. So if I can sit there and claim more over here, Moroccan over there, and claim America here, some of that kind of spirit, you can care less where you are, because there's a purpose behind it. The difference between a job or career or being an entrepreneur and what we're talking about, like my lady typed in that said, so how can you be of this land and claiming Moroccan heritage, which is in Africa, is it's irresponsible. It's sloppy. It's careless. And I hate to have to say it, some people may be just going for the money bag. Well, if we claim to be Indians and they got reparations, or maybe we can too. Brothers and sisters, in 1842, the people known as the Cherokee people enslaved the black man. And when Lincoln and later on Johnson and Grant also was sent up there saying that slavery is now over, there were indigenous or Native Americans that said, I am not letting him go. Did you know that? So these are things we care to point out for reference purposes. All right? So let us continue in this particular case. Thank you all for the comments. Like, share, subscribe. We appreciate it. Thank you for that, if we will. This is part of the letter Mosby Shepherd left for Monroe regarding the uprising. Now, this is the uprising that we're talking about in the year 1800, brothers and sisters. This is concerning the matter with Gabriel Prosser. Gabriel Prosser, as we pointed out, was a person that was teaching people then that they were the Israelites of the Bible. Gabriel Prosser, like Nat Turner, knew how to read. Reading, we want to point out, was a dangerous thing, the way these people viewed it. Now, this again is not to stir up anger, strife, or contention. And it's also on this channel not to be thought of, it ain't all. We're not coming with the it ain't all song on this platform, brothers and sisters. That's not responsible. Because nobody started off by saying all. The memes don't say all. The PowerPoints don't say all. So there's no need to sit there and say, I didn't say all of them. And there's a reason why I keep saying that, because I watched a video earlier that kind of rubbed my spirit the wrong way. Well, it ain't really all of them. You know, sometimes the fire department back in the 60s and 70s might have seen, you know, people getting burnt inside of a building. And if they were black, they turned around. But it ain't all of the people look like that firefighter. We're not doing that. It ain't all song on this. You understand? We're going to come maturely, respectfully, responsibly in this particular matter. And humbly to be able to be taught, be teachable. We talk about that, brothers and sisters, on this particular platform. So let us, brothers and sisters, with the time allotted, thank you all for that, continue in this particular matter and in this particular stance. Thank you all for that. All right? The brother Yirmiyahu typed in the early 2000s, the Cherokee Nation kicked out blacks to receive benefits from the government. And not to be disrespectful, and this is no disrespect, correct me if I'm wrong, in many cases, when people come to the current United States, it's a common practice to sit there and hate the black man in order to kiss the white man's behind. Am I lying? Why you think perhaps that East Indian guy running for president was saying Juneteenth makes no sense and all of this kind of stuff? You're campaigning as an East Indian, a Hindu, on a Republican ticket talking against black people. What was the point in that? Because they may feel by doing so and knowing it's been over a 400-year sport to disrespect the black man in the United States that, well, we may as well just join the program. You understand? So this is something for reference purposes. I'm being asked, Shalom Moray, Brother William, do you still ship your own book if someone wanted an autographed copy? Yes, I do. My number is across the screen, 908-587-4841. You can WhatsApp me, you can call me, you can text me. Yes, if somebody wants an autographed copy, I do, through FedEx, send it out in that particular case for those interested. Getting back into this, brothers and sisters, we see here, Mosby Shepherd, you can look this up in your own time for this kind of information for those who are interested. Let's continue, if we will, family. All right? Asking you all to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Having removed from Islande, or Estland, correct me if I stand to be corrected in my pronunciation, to the corner of Baronne and Gravier Streets, west of the St. Charles Hotel, where I will keep constantly a hand of Maryland and Virginia Negroes, consisting of field hands, house servants, mechanics, cooks, washer, ironers, seamstresses, all of which will be sold low for cash or on time for good city acceptances. This, brothers and sisters, is J.M. Wilson, corner of Esplanade and Monroe Streets. We'll keep on hand be consistently receiving during the season. Maryland and Virginia, guess they spoke Virginia different, Negroes, consisting of field hands, house servants, cooks, seamstresses, washers, ironers, mechanics, etc. Low for cash. Planters and purchasers. The planters were the Caucasians in that case. Did you know that used to be our resume? Drops mic. I want to point this out for reference purposes. That used to be our people's resume in the United States. Let's look at the time frame, brothers and sisters, if we will. Again, this is not to spark anger, stress, strife, or anything of that sort. But let's look at this, if we will, for edification purposes, right? I'm going to take out the time to use my calculator. Now, the first time slavery was known in what we call the United States, let's just take their accepted date. It goes before then, but let's just take their accepted date of 1619, right? So we have a calculator. 2023, take away 1619, gives you 404. Now, say from 1619, right? Slavery ended, in the United States, 1865, according to the record, even though Mississippi was still a legal slave state until the year 2013. I want you to hear that again. Mississippi was a legal slave state until 2013. That is just 10 years of Mississippi having filed in their papers to the country to no longer be a slave state for the past 10 years. That means for the 30 years plus of my life, Mississippi was still legally a slave state. Do you know, brothers and sisters, that they still got what they call sundown towns, where black people are not expected to be out at a certain time inside of the United States? Pardon the language. Did you know that there's a place in Virginia called Negro Foot after a black man's foot was found in there and it was called Nigger Foot? This is why we don't go into these kind of presentations maybe on the Sabbath. Might be a little bit raw. And I say this in no disrespect intended. You understand? So let's look. 1865, take away 19, pardon me. 1865, take away 1619, 246. Do you know when you do that math, that means legally in this country, brothers and sisters, we were slaves longer than free to date. Then we talk about the Jim Crow. Then we talk about the black people, as we are called, who, not to be disrespectful like myself, I'm going to have a better future by going south. But you didn't have a plan for the South, and then you had to come back up north. This is no knock on anyone. New York was a slave state. When I talk to my family, immediate and extended in the South, please don't be offended when we come from, quote, the North and talk about this, because those who do know by Wall Street and Fulton Street in New York, there's a slave burial ground that people was upset because they wanted to build on it. Where do you think Wall Street got its name from? We're going to get into these kind of presentations, brothers and sisters. Let's continue with the time allotted. Thank you for that, family. All right? The matter of the Monroe Doctrine. It states in part, the United States will not interfere with European conflicts. The United States will not interfere with existing European colonies or territories in the Western Hemisphere. European powers would not attempt any further colonization in the Western Hemisphere. When I first read of this Monroe Doctrine, it kind of sounded hypocritical, because part of it says the United States will not interfere with existing European colonies or territories in the Western Hemisphere. European powers will not attempt nor further colonization in the Western Hemisphere. But brothers and sisters, for those who know about the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, 1804, with the time when Monroe was alive, to put dates, times, names, places, and so forth into time frame and sequence, you did interfere. Long before the Monroe Doctrine came out in 1823, which got shot down by Congress, for those who know the history, into the other European matters. Because eventually, Florida, brothers and sisters, became part of the United States in 1845, as pointed out in the book, Egypt Talk and Writing, for those who are interested. The colonies did not consist of Florida, brothers and sisters. So when you look at the 13 colonies and when certain places became states, in 1850, correct me if I'm wrong, is when California became a state. I studied about that because when I was doing the research for the book called Israelite History as it Relates to the World, I found out that they was protesting in San Francisco about the death of Lincoln. But I was like, in California in the 1860s, it already became a state a decade or so before then. So you did interfere in what is called Spaniard America, or New Spain, for those who know that time frame in history. So Congress shut down the Monroe Doctrine. They didn't honor him in that particular way. Monroe was an enslaver. We named some of his slaves. And now, brothers and sisters, I'm going to ask you to get your phones out and take screenshots, if you will, of what we're going to get into. Get your pens, your pads, your papers, your phones, and take notes. Let's continue giving honor and praise unto the Most High. In the northern mainland colonies, most slaves in small numbers incidental to the West India trade. What is the West India trade? Well, what's the West Indies? Guadeloupe, Montserrat, Nevis, Jamaica, Trinidad, Bahamas, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Croix, St. Thomas, Puerto Rico, because that's how it got its name. Puerto Rico means rich port. Santo Domingo, now known commonly as Haiti and Dominican Republic, Dominica, Trinidad, and Tobago, just to name some. That's part of the West Indies. Some of it owned by the Dutch, some of it owned by the French, some of it owned by the Spaniards, some of it owned by the British. Most of the slaves, or many of the slaves, that came into what we call Virginia, that's why this presentation is called Starring Monroe in the state of Virginia, came from the West Indies. And we want to point that out for edification purposes. New York and New Jersey imported over 4,500 slaves over the time of 1715 and 1767, but less than 1,000, were African born. The rest were West Indians, and even the African born may have lived in the Caribbean colonies. Let's continue. Slave ships entering Virginia between 1710 and 1769, most came from either the West Indies or nearby colonies. A much smaller number of ships from, I meant to type that in, from Africa brought about 86% of the 53,550 slaves, 500 slaves recorded, as you see there. I want to show only human, made a typo. Sorry for that, family. If we will, for edification purposes, right? I want to correct myself in this particular matter. So we're going to do this. As it's not the first time done, I'm only a human. From, and then we start at the slideshow from current slide. So, slave ships entering Virginia between this era of 1710 and 1769, which is, say, a little over 55 years, most came from either the West Indies or nearby colonies. So there was shipping and then reshipping. Did you know that? And that's the point in that particular case. What do we want to point out? If the United States came to its existence in name and government in 1776, and this is dated before 1770, you can't separate colonial slavery and United States slavery. You can't. You cannot separate the black man from the West Indies and the black man from the Americas, because those who do know that the West Indies is part of the Americas. So when you hear that S at the end of such. Let's continue, if we will. Notes and explanation. South Carolina was a direct importer from Africa in the 18th century. From 1733 to 1785, we see 3 to 4% of the 65,000 slaves recorded with only an American point of origin. So it's the matter of South Carolina. What city are we talking about? Charleston. Good old Charleston. Where people in South Carolina, when I was out there, were saying, no disrespect to brothers and sisters in Charleston, please, they'll take offense. They may as well just have the chains put on the people and so forth. When I was in a place in South Carolina called Chester, South Carolina, right? I don't know what to call it, but it just wasn't in me to go into a particular store. The store had the word cotton on it. And it mentioned something about that place called Chester in South Carolina. And that Chester was founded in 1791. So knowing that the slave trade in ships internationally was, though wicked, still legal. Legal don't mean righteous. In that time frame, and you're talking 1791, but the international slave trade was deemed piracy only after 1807 into the year 1808. My spirit just didn't allow me to walk into a store in Chester found in 1791 with the word cotton on it. I stayed in my friend's car. I said, Aki, I just can't walk in there. That's not going to be that. I am in, and this is again, no disrespect, because I have friends and family in the South. I am in a store. No need to even mention the name of the store. And I picked up a branch that had cotton on it while I was in South Carolina. And this white man in the store said, "What are you going to do? Did you pick it?" This is when I was 40 years old. This white man asked me while I'm in the store pushing the shopping cart with a stick that had cotton on it, did I pick it? His wife was like, "Oh my gosh." Now, there's wisdom that we've been talking about. I could have lost my cool and struck him and would have caught a case. That's not the wise way to handle it. Take a mental note. I'm 40. This guy looking, I don't know how old he was, at least over 70. What would make this 70, just using that as an age, white man asks me at 40, did I pick the cotton that I put inside the cart, or as they call it in South Carolina, a buggy, or the shopping cart, or whatever term you want to use? Who taught him to ask any man of color, younger or older, did you pick that? They teach that to their children. Brothers and sisters, you understand? So these are things we care to point out for reference purposes. You understand? They teach that to their children. What must we teach our children? So when they are as old as that guy, what to and not to say, and how to handle a particular situation. Let us continue, brothers and sisters. To be sold on board the ship. Guess that's Bance, whatever that is. On Tuesday, the 6th of May next, at Ashley Ferry, a choice cargo of about 255 healthy Negroes just arrived from the Windward and Rice Coast. The Windward and Rice Coast is in Africa. This was part of our resume in the United States, brothers and sisters. That's something we do not want to sit there and forget. Let's continue, if we will, brothers and sisters. Notes and a connection. The Brown brothers of Providence. Now, where's Providence? Anybody? It's in the north, in a place called Rhode Island. Let's see who this Brown person is here in the picture. The Brown brothers of Providence had already invested in spermaceti candles, in an iron furnace and foundry that supplied cannon to General Washington's army. Remember we told you earlier we was going to talk about Washington? This is the part here. The slave trade in New England provided much of the capital that helped to create the Industrial Revolution. So what do we read right here? The slave trade in New England. Who were the people in New England? And what is New England? New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Vermont area, and so on. Right? The slave trade helped the people in the North get started what was called the what? Industrial Revolution, which was started after the era and during the beginning of the Lincoln administration. So the slave trade, when we start talking about we built this country, these are reasons why we say such. You mean to sit there and tell me the North that was like, oh, we are not about the slavery. Use the funds from the slave trade, the cotton that was picked, and so forth and so on, that led into the Industrial Revolution? Brown brothers of Providence. Did you know, brothers and sisters, there's a building in New York, in Manhattan, on Fulton Street, called Brown Brothers Harriman. In the book that I wrote, From Assyria to America, I'm going to show it with the old cover, if we will. Right? Right here. This is the old cover of it, but it still has the same content. The Brown Brothers Harriman, brothers and sisters, were in part the people who have that building on Fulton Street when you get on the train and get off, for those who know New York, at Bowling Green and walk less than 4 or 5 blocks. Or you go to Whitehorse Street on the R train, for those who know it. There's a big brown cube in front of that building. And this is not far from where the Big Bull is by the Native American Museum in downtown Manhattan. Brown Brothers Harriman is connected to the bank system. Washington took black people's teeth. Lincoln fired Fremont for freeing black people. Hamilton wasn't part of the slave trade. When you go into a paper called the Federalist Papers, when you get into the matter of what happened with Jackson and the Trail of Tears and he enslaving his own children and so forth, on a $20 bill this is Trump's hero, is Jackson, a person who told Congress where they can go, I'm going to continue enslaving. On a 50, you have Grant, who had a slave, even though he was fighting for, quote, the side of the North. And then you got Franklin, who they say was rolling around with a kite and got a charge, who was endorsing the slave trade as well in the 18th century. Don't give me that and say that's my reparations. Yes, money is a defense, but you're not going to sit there, and I have to ask you all to excuse my language. In the South, in South Carolina, again, this is no knock on the South because we're pointing out New York was a slave state and so forth. Until 1827, New York was a slave state. Livingston Street in downtown Brooklyn was a Jewish-owned plantation area. Prospect Park was where that plantation was of today, for those who want to get into that. What they call Central Park used to be called Seneca Park, where black people used to live before we were pushed into Harlem. Now they want to put us up out of Harlem. When I talk about these different states, I'm not trying to say this is better than that. Please let that not be the thought, brothers and sisters, for reference purposes. They used to take black people in South Carolina. I ask you to excuse my language. Maybe you want to cover your children's ears. Bent him over, put gunpowder in his anus, ignite it, and call it blasting a black's ass. That was in the United States. They would take gunpowder and put it inside of your rectum and blast it, and we already explained what terminology they use. There's no need to keep using profanity. So you can't give me The Dead Presidents, which is a movie me and my lady saw in part earlier today, and say, here's your reparations for that. No. Don't insult me with that. Yes, money is a defense. Yes, we have to deal uprightly. But at the same token, in dealing uprightly, don't allow what happened to you to be shortchanged. So let us continue, brothers and sisters, in this particular case. Thank you for that. The people brought in part to Virginia, Gambia and Senegal, over 3,600. Guinea, over 6,700. Calabar, over 9,200 from people like the Igbo and the Efik. Angola, over 3,800, the Bantus. Madagascar, over 1,000 or over 1,000. This is from a chart, brothers and sisters, that comes from, and I want to type in the reference of what I'm talking about for reference purposes, right? If we will, for edification purposes, hoping and praying that everybody is well and will be better. Once we begin to know, see, and understand in part what happened with us as a people, again, this is not to sit there and spark anger or anything of that kind of sorts, brothers and sisters. What this is, for reference purposes, is to bring this out to the masses of the people so that way we can sit there and learn something. Elizabeth Donnan wrote a book. And in the book that Elizabeth Donnan wrote, brothers and sisters, is where this information comes from. Now, why did I use Madge Sinclair, may she rest in peace, and John Amos from the movie Roots in this? Is a reason. Remember we talked about how many people directly from Africa brought to the United States went to South Carolina, and how we talked about people in South Carolina were reshipped from the West Indies into Virginia? Well, the movie Roots was based in part in Virginia, right? Madge Sinclair, the lady you see there, is from what you call Jamaica. John Amos, correct me if I'm wrong, is from the United States. I didn't know that Elonion from The Color Purple, well, not The Color Purple, Coming to America, or whatever the name was in pronunciation, and the character she was playing, that lady was from Jamaica. I don't know what parish in Jamaica. If you know it, please type it into the chat. But she's from Jamaica, playing a wife and a slave in Virginia, and was the one that was noted. Do you hear that they're going about to make General Washington the president? I thought the person playing that in Roots, when I first saw it, was what you would call today a Black American. But no, she's what you call, in today's terminology, a Black Caribbean, and playing the wife of a said Black American. This is why we cannot, as said Black people in the Western Hemisphere, separate the quote those in the West Indies and those in quote the mainland. You understand? This is something, again, that we want to point out for reference purposes in that particular case. Let's continue, brothers and sisters, with this. Giving honor and praise unto Yah, the creator, the maker of heaven and earth. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. Thus ends the presentation. We thank you for your time. We thank you for your patience. We thank you for your subscribing. We thank you for your comments, likes, and shares. We thank you for your support. If anybody ever cares to participate with a brother in a live, you got the number, 908-587-4841. Reach out to me, text, WhatsApp. If you hit me up on Facebook, Yeshaya Author Danite, you can sit there and message me and everything like that. It's an open page in that particular case for communication and so forth. More than Yeshaya history lessons. Join Danite Publications as we read the story of Hanukkah. Come in here, the true story of what happened between the Hebrews and the Greeks after the timing of Alexander. The scene is in Judea and the Hebrews are victorious. Have your Bibles and Apocryphas with you when December 6, 2003, a so-called Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Brothers and sisters, email yyisrael22@yahoo.com, danitepublications.com. Thank you for that. Care to learn about the history of your people from your people? If so, you can check out and support the books by the English name, in this case, Vincent Hutchinson. And these books that you see there are part of that in that particular case. So you can go online if you want to and type in Vincent Hutchinson, part of the English name, and this will come up and you can purchase that way. To the brother or anyone else who typed in or is concerned about, do I still ship my own books? If someone wanted an autographed copy, yes, I do. All right. Thank you, my lady, for typing in that Madge Sinclair is from Kingston, Jamaica. Let me ask this question. Is Kingston part of a parish or connected to another one? My knowledge of Jamaica is not as best. So Kingston is a parish itself, like Trelawney is a parish, like St. Elizabeth is a parish, like St. Mary's is a parish, like other places like that. See, learning. Thank you for that, brothers and sisters. I appreciate it. All right. So, want a personal copy? I do send it, but I send it through FedEx. All right. In that particular case, thank you for that. Mordecai Yeshaya History Lessons presentation, December 15th, which is, if I remember right, a so-called Friday, 2023, concerning the migration of the Hebrews. This is a part 4 series, and will deal primarily with the history of the scattered Hebrews in America from the southern states to the states in the north and west of the United States. We hope you all are well and will be better. We can be reached again at 908-587-4841. Mordecai Yeshaya History Channel. Hebrew language Israelite culture. Support the channel. Support our scholars. Thank you for that. Ancient history, biblical history taught by us, about us. Brothers and sisters, I want to take this time out now, if I may, and show physically a beautiful book written by the person who inspires me the most in this earth. And that is my lady Sarai. You can get this book as well. We're going to turn the light on here with that, and we're going to turn on the camera before we close out. We ask you all to get this book, Chronicles of a Black Woman's Soul, In and Out of Time. The description for such, or the link to such, will be in the description. All right. This book is a book of poetry, over 30 pages of poems. Some of them are funny, some of them are sad, none of them are fake. All right. In this particular case, and so forth and so on. Chronicles of a Black Woman's Soul. I have yet to hear a complaint. One of my mothers, and everyone knows me, I always talk about my mother, may she rest in peace. One of my mother's friends, who's older than my mother being younger than her, may my mother rest in peace, bought the book and did like it. You understand? So again, these are things we care to point out for reference purposes. So you can get this book. The link is in the description. If you want a personalized copy, you can reach out to the number again, 908-587-4841. So again, brothers and sisters, giving honor and praise unto Yah, Creator, the maker of heaven and earth. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. Pray for your people. Pray only to Yah. And brothers and sisters, you know the phrase, and it's not to be preachy. God helps those who help themselves. And when the Most High sees that his people are getting along, he will bless us. We read in Psalm 79, how long will your anger burn like fire? What if the Most High were to say, how long will y'all hate each other and not get along? How long will you not be there for your children and dishonor your parents? Before we ask, why is the Most High's anger kindled against us? Can we ask, why is it that we don't love one another as we are commanded to actually to be so? So brothers and sisters, we hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. We're going to close out in prayer, and we're going to read, brothers and sisters, if we will, in the book of Tehillim, or Psalms, chapter 83, if we will. Thank you for that, and let's close out. Keep not thou silence, O Elohim. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Elohim. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thine hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom and of the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek and Philistines and the inhabitants of Tyre. Assur also is joined unto them. They have been helping the children of Salah. Do unto them as unto Midian, the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabin, and the book Kishon, which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Make their nobles like Oreb and like Zeb. Yea, make their princes as Zibah and Zalmunah, who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of Elohim in possession. O Ma'el, make them like the wheel, as the stubble before the wind, as the fire burneth a wood, and as the flame setteth the mountains of fire. So persecute them with thy tempest, and make them afraid with thy storm. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Yah. Let them be confounded and troubled forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, art the Most High over all the earth. Hallelujah.
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 Amen.
Amen.
Giving honor and praise unto Yah, the creator, the maker of heaven and earth. We are going to close out now. We ask you all to comment, like, share, subscribe. We intend to do a presentation, creator willing, concerning Hanukkah, December 6th on this channel, Morning Yeshaya History Lessons. You all have a good evening, a good week. Hopefully it's prosperous for us all, and keep each other in prayer and pray only to Yah. Thank you for that, and shalom.